Detection Collaborative, a detection dog training trio with Stacy Barnett.
Hi.
Robin Grubel.
Hey there.
And Crystal Wing.
What's up?
With humor and a big dose of theory, our trio talks practical training advice and features interviews with top trainers and scientists.
It's Canine Detection Collaborative.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Canine Detection Collaborative. This is Stacy Barnett, and I'm here with my two amazing co-hosts. We have Robin Grubel.
Hello.
And Crystal Wing.
Howdy, friends.
And we've actually, hopefully you guys have listened to the most recent episodes because we had some of the coolest guests and really just got deep into some really awesome topics. Our last few episodes have been very search and rescue heavy, but hopefully everybody who's not doing search and rescue, you've gotten a ton out of all the episodes. But we are going to do our reflections episode. So the last three episodes, we had Jack, Anicia, and Diana, and we're going to be reflecting on those three episodes. I think all of the topics that we did cover were kind of similar in some ways. So I think we probably had some really common threads and a lot of things that I know the three of us really care a lot about, and hopefully you guys do too. So let's go ahead and get started. Robin, you were kind of our silent
Our
interviewer.
lurker. Yes.
Yeah,
You get to do all the talking today. Let's go.
right.
Make up for last time. Let's go.
I know. So we were there. The way we work it, guys, is that we always have the third person kind of listening in and usually kind of, talking about questions and stuff like that. Mostly because we don't want to inundate our guests with all these people that they have to talk to, right?
Right.
So,
and as listeners, it's a lot of ears. It's a lot of voices to have to keep track.
yeah, and a lot of us already have a lot of voices in our heads and we don't need any others. So
I wasn't going there, but okay.
So Robin was a lurker on these three. So why don't we go ahead and because you were listening in and Crystal and I were asking the questions, you're probably sitting there going, can you please ask the one, whatever. But I would love to kind of maybe start with some of your reflections here.
I think probably the biggest one is it's nothing new, but it was really, really the affirmation of when we're setting up hides, are we setting up hides in a way that our dog is becoming better and we're finding holes? Or are we setting up hides that make us feel like fantastic trainers?
Ego hides.
They're ego hides. And there's ego hides. There's absolutely a place for motivational hides for your dog, right? And one of the things that I have figured out with my cadaver dogs is once we kind of get, and even actually any of my detection dogs, once we get to a certain proficient level of proficiency, anything that is not setting out, especially for the cadaver dog work with Nico currently, if it's setting out less than about 72 hours, it's a motivational hide for him, unless we really, really set it out to be a complicated small threshold or complicated scent theory hide. But if I go throw something out in the middle of the pasture and let it sit for 72 hours, he's going to run by it. It's going to whack him in the face and he's going to go in and bark it and he can solve the problem in about 3 seconds. And that bites you in the butt on deployment because then you have a 30-second dog. That if they haven't solved the problem in 30 seconds, right, then your dog is looking at you like, where's my stuff?
That's why you buy 800 acres.
That's why you have 800 acres, right?
or you have a friend with 800 acres.
Right.
You just start at the other corner and
then unfortunately they have to go halfway across the country to get there.
Yes, to get there. But you also have to search like you're going to search on deployment. So it gets into, and I'll be honest, I was out on a call 1 year to the day after getting my knee replaced. And I will tell you, it was one of the best ways to celebrate full recovery from knee surgery, right? And I'm just like, I can now feel like I can go out and do some of those really extended nose time hides that I wasn't able to do before, which is what we do on a deployment. And so the thing in listening to Anicia and Jack, and I love their timed blinds idea, is really how, and it goes back to even some of what we do at distraction camp and the intentional handling and hide setting, is putting pressure on the handler. And how do you amp up that pressure in training? And I swear, one of the things that I think, and this also goes back to the Jens Frank episode where he talked about setting out, your dog should only find 60%, is even if you do that as an assessment occasionally, you then find out where your holes are so you get better, because bad guys aren't burying people out. They don't just drop them in the ditch all of the time. They try and put them weird places. Bad guys aren't hiding dope in easy places in the couch and things like that. They're sticking them up 18 feet in the ceiling or wherever and in an outlet or something stupid.
Unless you're a high school kid.
Yeah. And then you're kind of not.
Sorry, I teach high school. I heard a story today that I was like, are you kidding me? I won't share, but yeah, you can imagine.
So the really big bad guys are doing bad guy stuff. High schoolers are high schoolers.
Interesting. I was just talking to my coaching community. Actually, just yesterday, we did a Q&A and we were talking about frustration. And I said, a little frustration is a good thing. Because I think a lot of times we get, on the sports side, get so worried about the dog getting frustrated that you kind of water things down so much so that the dog is always 100% successful. And a little bit of frustration actually helps to inoculate the dog and help the dog build a little resilience. Now, if you set something where the dog gets completely frustrated, that's not good either. But we had this conversation, like just a little bit of frustration can help the dog learn how to work through it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of along those same lines, because I think on the sports side, people get so sensitized to, oh my gosh, the dog's got to be, he's on a good note. All this type of stuff.
And I think, on the sports stuff, as watching some of the handlers come through and realizing the dogs know their job.
Yeah.
And we have to make the dogs resilient enough to withstand the stupid mistakes that the handlers make.
Yep.
And if the dog's always successful all of the time and the handler is enabling that, and then you get into a trial where it's blind, and you do stupid stuff, because we're human and we all do stupid stuff. This is why in search and rescue world, we have what's called testing brain or certification brain. And it's like everything you've learned goes out the window and you just do stupid stuff while you're certified.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's one of the worst stories of my life. But yeah, go ahead. I just imagine standing there staring at that damn tractor tire. I can't look at tractor tires the same anymore.
Just like, and we're all standing. Yeah. Anyway, so we all do it because we get nervous. And so if you're not inoculating the dog against handler stupidity on a regular basis, they don't know how to handle it.
That, and you think about like on a deployment, like the variables are so much like, if I think about it from a sports side, right, the variables are controlled and we're doing it like a test, but it's all within this controlled, like they've got certain things they're going to do for certain levels and everything. But, in talking to Jack, Anicia, and Diana, it's like, there are things that you can't even really prepare for. One of the things that Diana was talking about that I thought was really fascinating was around the quantity of distraction. I mean, we talk a lot about the concentration of target odor, right? And she told us the story where she knew on the other side of the lake, there was a pig carcass, right? So you're talking a huge decaying kind of thing, and how she had worked off of things like that already with her dog. But she said it was really interesting when she was on the other side of the lake, how that odor picture seemed so different to her dog on the other side of the lake. But, like we can always be thinking about when we're training, we don't necessarily think about like an entire pig cart, right? I thought that was super fascinating to me, because always thinking about concentration of target odor, not necessarily thinking about concentration of the distraction or distance from that. It was interesting.
Also thinking about when they have to use pig as the only, scent because they can't have access to cadaver, like in Europe and such. Yeah. And I was kind of wondering about that as well, like how that works. I don't know. I want to learn more about that at some point, because how do they do that?
I was talking with somebody, I can't remember who it was, but they literally went on a rant how when you start getting down to the molecular level, there is nothing similar about humans and pigs.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know. I guess.
And so shoot, who was that? That might have been in my continuing education program through SWDI. But anyway, literally it has turned into, you now have options. There are Precision Explosives has a cadaver aid out there. I helped them develop it. It makes use of the GetScent technology. So it's not a pseudo, it is an adsorption aid. So there are options for people to do things.
Okay.
And some of it, so there's that. But as Stacy was talking about the whole quantity of pigs thing, and I'm like, I remember Nico running over the top of a raccoon, and then also knowing that we have a large amount of cattle.
Yeah.
They die.
Yeah.
We have random places where there are cows in our ditches because we lose cows. They die and we lose cows. I lost one of my cows. I don't know where she is. She just didn't come in one day. And we've never been able to find her.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. And so
probably something to do with those coyotes.
Probably.
Yeah. Oh, that was still scary. Anyway.
So, but the thinking of okay, you're setting up all of these little distractions. So you set up these distraction fields, which we do. But what happens if you put an entire open bag of cookies or something out there? Or, oh my gosh, goose poop is like fragrance of the gods to most dogs.
But to have the setup like what Anicia talked about, of having just that space where you could leave all the different crazy distractions out. I thought, man, what a dream that is. And then I thought,
and then I'm like, really I don't want to drive past it, but whatever. That's the kind of thing like you ever go on those roads and you just have to close all your vents.
Well,
I spent all these years driving by, just admiring all these tracking fields. When it's not that many people, get that excited about, oh my gosh, look at the field. It's so great. You could just go walking. And now I'm like, oh, a field you could just put a bunch of disgusting stuff. Yeah.
Well, and I'm like,
but I love it. It's just that neutral. It's just that white noise that's happening. And it's when you have that scarcity that we always tend to have, where I have so many people that will tell me I'm not going to take my dog hiking because I don't want them being able to just go free into the woods. And I'm like, that's that scarcity mindset though. You're making it so they're so desperate for it. It's like at school, as soon as they ban books, that is the number one book that all my kids are checking out. I mean, that is always the way it goes. Because at a public library, it's still there. And your school library card is a public access library card. So
that's your PSA for today.
I'm like, what's the school board even thinking? And it's like, and our school board tends to ban a lot of stuff. So it's one of those where you take it away and they're just going to want it more.
Right.
So if you keep taking away the access to smelling the weird stuff and doing the hiking and being out, you're just making them crave it more for the wrong reasons.
Well, and I have realized that that's one of those things where my dogs grow up having access and seeing 70 chickens on a regular basis and having cows live in the pasture next to them. And so we get into those situations, Nico's, all of my dogs are cutting their detection dog chops out in the gauntlet where there's who knows what living in the weeds of the gauntlet.
And if you think about the word gauntlet, that's a pretty good description.
Yeah. It's basically the fence row that all of our random stuff gets stacked in.
It's really cool.
Yeah. So, and it has vehicles and all sorts of things. And there's mice and rabbits and birds and rats and whatever living out, raccoons and pheasants and all sorts of things. And the dead versions of all of those things are already out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I go put something out, it's obviously novel. And that's one of the things that I hate about some of the certifications that require you to place diversions in your training area or in your certification area, that if it was a suet cage that had been sitting out there for 2 years or had been sitting out there for a year, the dog's not going to look at it. But because an empty suet cage is now sitting out there and was freshly placed, now it's novel. And they're like, hey, that's weird.
But that's also a good test.
It is a good test. I mean,
it's the baked potato test.
It's the baked potato test. Is that a novel, weird thing in your area? Yeah.
That really was a distraction came when we did it. That was really fun. Other than the fact that 5 minutes later, I sprained my ankle. But
Yeah.
One of the things you talked about earlier was about the adding nose time and the searching area and adding the frustration in. And one of the things that Anicia said was she compared it to a balloon. And as you're extending the nose time, you just want to blow it up slowly. You wouldn't want to blow it up really fast. And that's something that I've been struggling with right now, because one of the things I always did when I blew up balloons, my favorite thing was to grab the little end of it and then stretch it real tight so it makes that screaming sound. I was that kid. and so my initial, immediate, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's just like if you blow the balloon up real fast, then you kind of make it squeal. That's kind of the frustration point that I'm hitting with Radish with some things too, is if you do things a little too fast, you are going to get that vocalization. Mm-hmm. And I had a conversation, is what I'm going to call it, with Radish, where we were working on backup. It's just a proprioception, just working on movement and such. And we're adding Mondio obedience to our just things to do right now because it's winter. And she decided to have a conversation with me, and she was yelling at me to tell me that she didn't want to back up. And I couldn't quite figure out why. And she got louder, and I'm like, but you can do it. I believe in you. You've got this. And she's like, what? I'm like, but you can do this. You're the rock star. And I figured out that the black thing had gotten really slick. And so the last rep she did, she was like, I really don't want to back up on this narrow plank back onto that thing. Well, now she thinks it's okay if we have conversations.
Oh,
so that one repetition, I couldn't believe it. And so now she's like, okay, so we can just talk about it when I have feelings. I'm like, no, I don't want to hear about it.
No.
So now I'm having to make everything very successful, very easy, and not necessarily easy because she doesn't like easy, but successful, I think is the better word. And getting more reps of that so that we can get back to establishing not having that communication, that not having that frustration. So it's I like that you brought up the topic of frustration, because it really tied me back to when Anicia talked about the balloon. And when she said that, I immediately went to the leaking of frustration, that it sounds just like that damn balloon.
I'm picturing that too. Like I can totally hear that.
I'm like, blow it back up. So now I'm back in the blowing the balloon back up slowly. So that,
yeah. And really trying to slice that frustration a little bit thinner.
Yeah.
It is really, it's a tough concept. And I think sometimes it also comes down to if you don't have that motivation. I mean, clearly, you've built that, but I've seen this with some sport handlers where they haven't necessarily built the reinforcement that they need. So they haven't built the motivation. And so the dog doesn't necessarily have that grit to kind of get through just even that little hump of frustration. Because every so often we set out stuff that we think, oh, it's just going to maybe just push them a little bit. And it pushes them way more than we anticipated. And if we don't have all of that motivation kind of built, then it can kind of blow up.
It either blows up or it's you let go of the balloon completely and it
Yeah.
Is it like,
Do
And you're
that
like,
sound again.
well,
Do that
there
again.
I don't think I could because now I'm smiling.
I know. I can't even, the whole, I'm picturing it. I'm hearing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that balloon kind of picture now too, because it can be either you blow it up and it explodes, and then, well, that's worse.
I've always been afraid of the popping balloon. It's like,
Yeah. Or you just completely let go of it and it's deflated and
and it flies all over the place. And it's just,
yeah.
Yes.
exactly.
Which that's the zoomies. Oh my God. That's the zoomies.
That is
Oh
the
my
zoomies.
gosh. Yeah. Yes. Balloon
I
zoomies.
see a webinar coming from Stacy's or from Crystal's brain. You guys all just heard it right there.
I can't wait to watch it.
I know, right?
I got a list of them. So,
Oh my gosh. We were talking about nose time, and that made me like hop over to a conversation that we had with Diana about nose time, and saying that sometimes handlers go out and they're like, okay, well, I need to do nose time, but they're not like legitimately searching.
oh, yes.
Yes.
Right? They're just kind of going through the area.
The dogs know.
Right. Which is kind of like, oh, let's go for a hike, versus actually actively searching. And it made me really kind of think about purposeful blanks. And I know personally, I did a little bit of like, because I'm trying to think about, as a certified, right? So like, what do I really need to start to like layer in on her training? And so for me, I did a little bit of reflection after kind of listening to Diana to kind of think about different kind of opportunities on my own. That was really helpful. But that concept of blanks, I don't think we necessarily do enough of those in general. I mean, I don't mean like just me and my dog. I just mean like the whole like
People in general.
yeah, people. Yeah, that big
we.
W, big we.
Yeah. And I will agree with that. I mean, 99.9% of what we do is blank.
Right.
Right. But 99.9% of what we train is hot.
Yeah.
So you can't tell me the dogs don't know the difference between deployment and training.
So let's talk about our air scent or our live find people, right? How many times when you go for a search does your dog find the person?
Or a random person on accident.
Right. Oh, you might find a lot.
Well, and that's a valid.
That is actually that goes back to the what are those rewardable events, right? That we were talking about. I was just thinking more about this is your sector. This is your area that you're going off to search. But there's a bunch of different handlers of different sectors. Like how you're not going to have a find every time you go out.
Right.
I mean, it'd be nice, but
no.
But yeah, but that's a good point though, is you find a hiker, and it kind of gets back to another one of those conversations, like look for those rewardable.
Well, and yeah, absolutely. I was on a deployment with my very first dog, and we ran across, he did his full find, refind, came back in. I said, I got all excited. I'm like, show me. And he pulls me back to this. We were searching in an area with college kids who was hiking across a big, huge open area, which we were tasked to search. And I looked at him and I looked at the kid and I'm like, you're not so-and-so, right? And he's like, nope. I'm like, have you seen him? I have no idea who you're talking about. Okay. Flanker, talk to him, see if he's seen him. I went over and played with my dog because I'm like, total valid search.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Something that kind of works for me is that my ADHD brain, I have all these intentions. I'm loading the dogs up for all their activities, and I've got the cooler loaded with all of my source and everything's ready to go. And I set it by the door so that I absolutely cannot forget it. And then I get to where I need to be and I have forgotten it. So that is a great motivation to then have excellent blanks. That I do that a lot. So we do a lot of blanks.
Yeah, I have shown up to go training with stuff. And I'm like, well, all my hides, all my aids are sitting in the training building. So I guess we do blanks and we do obedience today.
I've had that happen with nose work. For air scent, it just means that the other person's stuck in traffic.
That this is valid.
Because it's kind of like, yeah.
So I always try to get the silver lining, I guess. I don't know, but it's a helpful thing.
No, I think it's a good thing. Can we talk about, we were listening, going back and listening to Jack and Anisia's episodes, The choosing a search and rescue dog.
Oh, yeah.
We talk about that a little bit because I think we had a really good conversation. And Nistia especially was kind of mentioning I know she's pointy. I have pointy dogs. I don't hold that against her. But how she was mentioning that with some of the dogs, like it's really going to depend a lot on the handler's skill set. And I know Jack had mentioned a little bit about how you want to make sure that you don't like have too much dog or not too little.
Right.
And it kind of had me thinking a little bit. And also my brain was kind of going to, there's a lot of maybe people new coming in and that sort of thing. And typically, what it seems to be is people kind of join a team. They usually already have a dog that they kind of have in mind, and that can make things challenging.
I'll be honest. I did this with my very first dog. I got him because he was a border collie and I wanted a border collie. And then all of a sudden I wanted to do search and rescue. And I had
Sable border collie.
A sable
right?
border collie. Yes.
Right.
And to be perfectly honest, he came not knowing how to play with toys. And I spent his first entire, not knowing anything. Okay, let's be honest, people. This was like back in 2002. Hadn't met Crystal yet. But I literally spent that entire winter playing with him on the floor because that's what the team told me is my dog had to like toys, which is fine. But I have had subsequent dogs, which were like, no, don't like toys. Or I'm scared of whatever, or I love Frisbee, but if I have to use my nose, this was Echo, another border collie. He's like, I love chasing a Frisbee, but if I have to do nose work stuff beforehand, that's a big no. Give me some freaking sheep.
Oh.
Right. And they get very, very wrapped up in being the hero of the story with this particular dog, which I totally understand. But when I have people approach me about doing search and rescue, I look at them and I'm like, dude, this is hard.
Yeah.
Search and rescue is hard.
On so many levels.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to do with a dog. It's often a hard thing to do because the people are passionate. And
I'm sorry, I saw that.
There was a face that went along
there
with
was
that.
A face. I'm like, I wonder what word choice she's going to use.
And literally, don't make it any harder than it needs to be by going out and getting a dog that you are going to have to work 5 times harder to do it with.
Because it's not even just the training for certification.
No.
Then you actually have to put the dog in a situation where somebody's life might be at stake there. So it's serious.
Yeah. And so it gets hard because you want to foster the person because the person is fabulous and you think that they're going to be an asset to your team, but their dog. And you can see it a lot of times. You know what? The dogs can tell you, they're like, dude, I really just want to lay on the couch and eat potato chips.
Or climb on your roof.
Or chase squirrels or all of these other things.
Or I'm afraid of people.
Right.
I haven't even been around that much and I've seen that.
Yeah.
I saw a Facebook post recently-ish, and that is something that I've really struggled with is watching people when they post things that they're so proud of that their dog is doing things, but you can see how the dog is terrified of the people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And either the handler won't acknowledge it or can't acknowledge it. And those are the times where you really need a team to be able to step in and have those tough conversations, because a random person on Facebook, which is what I am at that point, I shouldn't step in there and say
right. I can't. Well, and I posted something in the Canine Census trainers group. You are doing a podcast.
I am doing a podcast.
I'm doing a webinar. Right. I'm doing a webinar like the first part of January on I call them coaching conversations, right? And this is where we don't talk dog training. I'm talking about dealing with the people side of it. And I did one last year on what's your why. And this year I asked a question, and I'm watching all of these people basically pour out their little hearts and souls on Facebook as to a communication problem that they're having, because either they can't get it across or whoever they're trying to talk to can't hear them.
And think about how many people want to share things in that thread that can't because they know that other people are going to see it.
There's somebody that did an anonymous post. Don't know who it
Yeah.
is. I can't even see it as the admin in the group.
Yeah.
Good on them. At
Right.
least they got it put out there.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that we have to be very, very conscious doing search and rescue. And I think Diana, Anicia, and Jack hit on all of this. Not only is it the dog suitability, but it's the human suitability as well.
And I love when Jack talked about when you asked us to ask him about what he wants the canine handlers. And he's like, well, the same thing I want in the dog, good temperament.
Yes.
And I just appreciated that so much because I'm like, yeah, that's it right there. Because all the things that I want in my dog are the same things I want in the human.
Right.
Except, well, I want them to be able to communicate, with words, but but I want them to be resilient and clear. And
I thought you didn't want the conversation with Radish.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't want the words with Radish.
Not the welcome part. They must love toys, right?
Yes.
That's right.
An open mind, and
Right.
I think that was the big thing that I kept trying to figure out. And I never could quite kind of suss out from Jack was how did he actually become open-minded? Because they said that, yeah, he's like, Anicia did it to me, but how? Like, there's gotta be, she's a magician. Really, she's got to put her cape away or something because I wonder what skills that she had. Other than she was just direct, and I guess because she brought what they needed, it was worth listening to.
Right.
And, in that instance, that's the angle that they took. But that's a big challenge for a lot of people. It's a challenge for me because I know that I train a little differently than some other people do. And I think that it puts a lot of challenges out there.
It does.
And even like the different teams, it's like some are more open to that than others. And I look at my own team, which I love my team, right? And I had kind of joined it and then kind of went off and had Robin on speed dial. And I came back and I'm like, here's my dog with a refine. And they were like, cool, she looks great.
Yeah.
And then helped coach me. And there was none of this, oh, but how did you do it? Oh, but none of that. It was
You're
just
doing it wrong.
right. I didn't get any of that, which is really good on them.
Yeah. It's really good on them. Just to find those teams. And it just doesn't seem like it should be that hard to create those cultures. But then I look at our overall culture and I'm like, okay, I'm expecting a lot.
And it's interesting because as I'm coaching people with young dogs, because I coach and we train differently. Typically the people who are working with me with young dogs, I'm like, don't put your dog on odor till they're 10 months old.
Mm-hmm.
They've got too many gerbils going on in their brains and they can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And to have them come back to me after a training that they've gone, because, I'm in Iowa, they're all over the planet, actually. And they come back to me and be like, oh my gosh, the amount of peer pressure I had this weekend because the people who I went to go train with made me feel bad because my dog wasn't on odor yet.
Mm.
What do you mean you don't have your 12-week-old puppy already sniffing odor? And I'm like, your 12-week-old puppy doesn't even know where their feet are, let alone how to handle going into odor. You have plenty of time to teach them odor. So, okay, sorry. That was a soapbox.
Well, and that goes back
We're
into the
just sitting here
socialization
nodding.
piece. There's
Right.
so many things that we need to build.
Yep.
And it's not all about odor. We talked about the socialization and creating the neutrality, and there's so many skills. And even as talented as Anicia and Jack were talking about the distractions and all of the stamina and all of the work, and Diana as well, there's still so many other things to build. Like we talked about, they primarily are using all their large muscles, but then now you got to teach them to slow down, and you got to teach them to use those smaller muscles to get through those really intricate areas. And it's so much work. Like, it feels like a full-time job.
Yes.
Yeah. This is actually where some of the sport and like the detection, like the search and rescue and detection kind of diverge a little bit, because it's when you're talking to a dog that's going to be doing search and rescue. And honestly, I'm the first one to say that I completely underestimated it until I kind of got involved in it, and just realizing the extent of the distraction, the extent of the physicality that the dog has to have, the extent of the commitment that the dog has to have, the obedience that they have to have, like the confidence, all of this stuff wrapped up. We don't really have to deal with this in the sport side. And I'm the first one to say it, because I did it for many, many years. And so, so my dogs were all on odor very young. They could be. They didn't have to deal with a lot of the same things. But now I'm looking at, I took a 3-year-old, right, and started her in for air scent. And going back to like the selection of the dog, she was already genetically predisposed for this. She is not distractible. She, there's all these wonderful things about her and it was still hard. So going back to making sure that your puppy can develop and grow, because doing the training itself is so hard.
Right.
And this is kind of like where I said, like, it kind of diverges a little bit between the sport side and search, rescue, and detection, because it's bigger.
Well, and Stacy, you and I were having, this should be a shock to no one that we actually talk to each other outside of podcast stuff, right? And frequently. And we were having, Stacy and I, because Crystal has this full-time job thing. And
we do, but it's different.
I've been totally absent. I'm so sorry.
No. You're like sequestered in like the school thing.
Yes.
It's been bad.
But time's ticking on that one. Yay. Anyway. Yay. So we were having the conversation about, we have both sides of the table that poo-poo each other.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the absolute things that I have grown in appreciation for is the time constraints that are put on the nosework handlers.
Mm.
And to hear some of, I'll just pick on Alyssa. So Alyssa, there's your shout out. You have to have a shot now. So to have her come back from a seminar or from a nosework trial and be like, we were given 3 cars in this big open area and we were told we had a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a nosework NW1 or NW2 or something.
Yeah, she must have been she was doing an element specialty, because what they do is they tighten up the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I literally looked at that and I was just like, can you imagine what most search and rescue people would do if you told them you have a minute to search the cars and the area? Go. Wow.
But I wonder too, the difference in the odor availability.
Odor, absolutely, and makes a total difference. But as a cadaver dog handler, I can manipulate that. And, even as cocaine, marijuana, you can.
Marijuana. I like
marijuana.
that.
Yeah, I made a new one.
Here's an example. So Prize and I just competed. Prize did her first summit, and we had this one search area. It was an open span building that had a footprint of a half an acre. 37-foot ceilings, metal roof. And we had, I think, probably about 10 tables on the far end, all with chairs. They were long banquet tables, about 40 feet long, about 10 of those. There were probably 80 at least chairs all put together, and then a whole big other span. And this whole building, we were given 6 minutes.
Right. Unknown number of hides.
Yeah, unknown number of hides. And there was a hide hanging from an outlet in the middle, suspended about 9 feet up.
Right.
So I'm not talking, chump hides. So even though the odor is very available, that's the
scent cone.
Right.
It's huge.
Yes. So yeah, from a time pressure, although granted, you're not going to find everything in that one. But yeah, you do have that time pressure. But at the same time, like I've also, and these conversations we've had where I think you grew an appreciation for that. I massively grew an appreciation for the just the God, it's almost the difficulty of the training. And you can't underestimate the unpredictability.
Yes.
And it's not just like, I remember the first time I went out training with Prize. We've done this quite a bit, but now, okay, here's your area. And I'm on my hands and knees trying to get through the brambles. And so is my dog.
Right. And it was really interesting thinking about Jack and Anicia and Diana talk about, they do all of this weird training, right? And all three of them said, absolutely. And then we walked into that deployment and we had never seen anything like it before.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I'll have to see if I can find the article. There was a study that dogs absolutely, on a certain stretch of road, they were doing, I think, explosives detection. And they showed up to a particular road and the dogs were spot on.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go to a different section of road and the dogs were like, meh, we'll kind of search. And it had to do with the fact that one was their training location. So the dogs had an understanding that there was most likely going to be hides out there. And they went to another location and they're like, there's never hides here. So we're not going to search.
Mm.
And so as you think about that for your training, this is why training in new locations all of the time is really important, and showing up to the same place to do the same training at all of the time is not actually getting you where you need to go. An advanced level. For your younger dogs, maybe. Like, remember, it depends, right?
I had a friend hide something in the woods for radish, and I didn't really think much about it. I just thought it's surrounded by a river on all three sides, so you can't go too far. And there are certain things that when you do that, you should expect, like when they say that, well, it was by a downed tree. There are a lot of downed trees in the woods.
Tell her next time to drop a GPS
Okay.
marker and give her
Yeah. So I don't know. I just kind of thinking about when you're trying to figure things. Sorry, I got on a sidetrack there. Go ahead.
No. It's
I took a little note and then I lost my note. So
oh gosh, I do that all the time. It's kind of a little bit of the unexpected. And I think that's where you're going with that.
Yeah, it was. You don't know what you're getting into. And then you have to decide, like what Jack said, when you get out there and you don't know and the dog doesn't find it or whatever, I'm not going to sit there and help them. I'm going to let them do their job. And that's exactly what I did with Rad. I let her do her job and I listened to where the person thought they put it. And then we kind of moved and it wasn't there. And it was in the quadrant that we hadn't been in. So that I felt good about that. And went back the next day and thought, well, hopefully the raccoons didn't take it. And thankfully it was in some private property so that, there wasn't like some random person that's going to find this thing. And going back the next day, she was a rock star. It was brilliant to watch her work. It brought up a bunch of holes for me, but that's the first double blind that I've done in a very long time.
Right.
And so it was a really, really good experience. And I'm so, so, so thankful for that. But it's that unexpected I thought, you know what? I'm just going to let her work and really get a chance to watch how she is and who she is right now and kind of see if our training is holding up, because it's hard to train without a team, and trying to get the randomness and trying to make sure that the age of things, all those factors when you're just by yourself. And when I say myself, I have great friends. And so they help me and they hide things for me, but still, it's without a team, you don't have that same support.
Right. So I'm going to put a disclaimer on the statement that I am about to say.
Uh-oh.
No, because I need people
Okay.
to really, really understand this. Jack made a comment about the comment that you just referenced about, if it takes my dog 15 minutes to solve the problem, I'm going to let her struggle and do it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
He can do that because of the trainer that he is, the foundations he's put on the dog, and the dog that he has.
Yes.
Right? That is not necessarily something that you can do with a baby dog. I have dogs in my kennel that I can do that with, because that's the stage in their training.
Mhm.
I also have at least 2 other dogs that if I did that to them, they would get so frustrated, they would shut off and they just come and sit next to me and be like, I'm done.
Yeah. That's not a beginner dog move.
That's not a beginner dog. That is not a novice dog trainer move either.
Right.
No, and it's also you have to have the right dog for that. Because if I look back at the dogs I've had, I do have dogs that I could do that with now. But let's look back at Joey. You remember my wonderful standard poodle who had negligible food and toy motivation. And he was a very, very sweet boy. There's a good example of just don't know.
You can't do that with. So people have to, and I think that people, they overestimate their abilities, their dog's abilities. I do it as well.
Mhm.
So I'm not throwing rocks at people at stuff that I haven't already experienced.
And sometimes we underestimate. I'm guilty of that a lot.
Yes. And you underestimate and you're afraid to push.
That was something that Christy really brought to my attention because we went to do that. It was a burned cadaver scenario and it was all of the burned cars. And I'm like, well, she's never done. And Christy poof, shut up. Let her go do it. Let her do her job. I'm like, I'm just letting you know. And she's like, shut up. Because we're friends and I needed to hear that. But
Right.
still. And she was totally right. It was a gorgeous, just boom right there. I'm like, but she's never, it's like, shut up. Reward your dog. So yeah, we can definitely go on both sides of that scale. And it's just always balance.
Yes, it is. And it was fun and interesting to hear because they're East Coast people and I'm Midwest person. It's interesting to talk to other people about training. And I think that comes back to those open ideas. We don't have to agree on everything, right? But there's something super duper fun and interesting about having, okay, what's some of the stuff that you do? I love the idea of the distraction field. And you had better believe that you guys might show up this summer. And all of a sudden, because I can finagle with Joe on where cows are going to be.
Oh, we have ideas for camp.
Yes.
Oh.
And so if we can figure it out with cow chess, can I take the silo pasture and do some really interesting stuff with the silo pasture? And then some of it might disappear because we have coyotes and raccoons and possums and whatever. And so getting those interesting ideas makes things much better.
When are you going to get a hold of Jack and Anicia and get them out there too?
I need to do that. My summer got a little squirrely all of a sudden. And so
I don't mind it. Boof.
Yeah. So I might have to talk to them about September. So I was greatly appreciative of all 3 of them coming on and giving us kind of some of those aha moments and hearing Anicia talk about the differences and being able to read the temperament of the dog of how many blanks does they have to do versus how many hot hides. And, the fact that they are doing blanks and those sorts of things are really interesting to hear how other people balance those based on their dog and their training experience.
I want to see their homework sheets.
Oh, no kidding.
When they were like, yep, and we get homework and we have homework sheets. I'm like, oh, must see.
I know.
I'm not a high school teacher at all.
No. We might actually have to ask for those. What do those look like?
Just a little sneak peek.
Yeah.
What do you think? Takeaways?
Takeaways.
Something that kind of hit me. I was on my little Mondio quest right now. It was kind of cool. Today we had our department chair meeting and he announced to the group, he was like, Wing's retiring, and they all clapped. And I was like, oh, it's so cool. It's been a cool ride here lately. I got Teacher of the Year and then announced my retirement on the same day. And it's just been so much. And I don't know what the future has in store. And so I've been kind of going crazy on my CB Canine group, just using that as my space to just let my brain think dogs. And I'm finding myself, I need to focus more on school.
Uh-oh.
But I'm finding myself allowing myself to kind of have more tabs and energy to just think about and explore. And one of the things you guys were talking about was the deployment. You just don't know what to expect. And I think that's part of why I love the sport of Mondio that I've chosen right now. I wish I could be passionate about an easier sport or a different sport. I'm not going to name any other sports now that I've said easy, because that would just sound rude now. But
how about, well, because Mondio, you have a aspect of unknown because you don't know what the field is going to look like until you get there.
And that's why I feel like it's deployment level, because you have no freaking clue. Like, you'll know what the theme is, but you really have no idea. And I think that's why I'm always thinking about and pushing and the level of distractions and thinking about the Ds, because you have no idea what you're getting into. And every time it's something so over the top that you're like, how did you even think of that? And I feel like that is kind of where my brain goes for my detection work as well, because of that kind of Mondio background. Man, some days I wish I could love some other sport better.
I get that.
But I think it's cross-training Radish for that, I think, has actually been a really good thing recently. I can't train Checkmate anymore. He's been injured so much, and he's still injured. His elbow it's bigger today. I'm like, come on, dude. So yeah, I'm investing that training energy into Rad. So that's interesting and fun. But I do think that preparing her in the same way that I've been preparing him for all the distractions and the strangeness, I see it transferring and I see her confidence growing. And it's a really cool journey that we're on. So I don't know. I rambled a lot there, but yeah.
So I would say one of my takeaways is just more of an in general, and just how appreciative I am of our three guests coming and speaking with us, because getting different ideas is so incredibly powerful. And for someone like me who's new in search and rescue, to be able to hear different perspectives and backgrounds and thoughts. And what it does is that it just kind of layers on the other types of perspectives or background that you might have, that just kind of gives you kind of a little bit of a question mark of like, I wonder. And I spent a lot of time listening to the three of them thinking, I wonder, I wonder, I wonder. And those are the types of things that kind of get you looking at how you work your own dog, or observing how other people work their dogs, and thinking about opportunity and thinking about the what if of how you can take what you have, regardless of how really happy you are with where it's going or whatever, and can help you think about how to push that farther and in different ways that will ultimately help you to become a better resource.
Right.
And they gave so freely.
They did.
Really did.
Yes.
Really
I mean, so many actionable steps and tricks and things.
Yeah.
Oh, it was amazing.
Okay, stop there, because that was my takeaway.
Sorry. Okay. I want to steal takeaways here. That
Yeah, my takeaway was, how joyful was it to have a trainer conversation with people who have trained lots of dogs to do operational level stuff and have been training other people to do the same thing. And it was, and not to take anything away from, any of our other guests, but it was just one of those things. We haven't done somebody like that in a while. And it was just interesting for me to be able to take some of the little nuggets that they dropped throughout the entire thing and be like, oh, this is how I can change this exercise during the next seminar. This is how I can change this. This is how I'm going to modify some of my other training to help introduce some type of unknown thing. And I know I greatly appreciated them absolutely giving so freely of that knowledge and time. And the whole fact is, them doing that, it was like a little mini seminar, right? So thank you, everybody, for listening in. Make sure, I know all three of us got stuff going on, so we're going to go through all of that starting January 5th. the Canine Census Detection Dog Training Academy is launching our first cohort. And I know, woohoo, right?
Yay.
This has been a year in the making. Actually, Stacy and Crystal will tell you it's actually been like 2 or 3 years in the making. Because,
Like a year? What are you talking about?
Well, it's been a year of actually putting stuff up there, but it's been years in the making. And I have a spot open if somebody's interested. I'm purposely keeping it very, very small because it's basically a intensive 16-week coaching program. So there's that. I also have my winter webinar bundle that is out there. Muscatatuck registration is open. I think I'm down to my last 15 spots, and that is in June. So make sure you grab it's an all-inclusive weekend with Large Source, and some of the best trainers that I know on the planet are going to be there. And right now it's cadaver dogs only. So make sure that's out on the Canine Census site, on the podcast website, just so everybody knows. Distraction Camp and Intentional Handling and Hide Setting sold out in 24 hours. Intentional Handling and Hide
24
Setting.
hours. It was faster than that. It was minutes.
No, and Intentional Handling and Hide Setting sold out within the first hour.
Yeah, it was crazy.
At the most. And it took I got up the following morning and Distraction Camp had sold out. So we've started a wait list for that. So, and we don't want anything bad to happen to anybody, but things happen in 7 months. So if you want to get on, there's a link to go out and get on the wait list out there. So Stacy, what do you have going on?
Well, by the time this airs, you won't be able to get into my December classes, but I have my February classes coming up, and registration opens January 22nd for my my classes for Fenzi Dog Sports Academy. I'm teaching 3 different classes. I've got my 101, which is my introduction to nose work. This is where, I teach dogs how to, we start to get them on odor, we get them searching. And I'm also teaching my hide placement for powerful training class, so NW 370. That's really, really heavy in scent theory and really kind of helps you figure out how to set your hides for purposeful training. And the third class I'm teaching is NW 465, which is making the inaccessible hide easy, where I teach the students how to systematically teach inaccessible due to containment, due to reach, and due to elevation. So we make inaccessible hides easy in that class. So,
okay. Crystal, what do you have going on? Anything?
Oh, mine's not until the future. Some webinars and such, but I got a cool thing working with Ann up in Wisconsin, and I'm really excited to see where that goes. And then basically May 28th is when I am no longer teaching at high school and I'm heading out for seminars. So I've kind of put a word out that said, hey, if you are looking for me to head your way, let me know. And then all of a sudden, I'm heading a lot of ways.
So Crystal is taking bookings for later 2025 and probably into 2026.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of crazy. My goal was, I was like, if I could get basically 12 seminars in a year, not one each month, but that was kind of what I was thinking. And I had 10 before I even said anything to anybody. It was like, whoa, how did that just happen?
Right.
And my thing that I have to think about now is like how to make it work.
And then
it's a lot of driving.
500,000 miles on her.
I know. It's a lot of driving in a really old van. And I'm like,
Right. So if you want to get Crystal someplace, please reach out to her sooner rather than later. Thanks, everybody, and go train.
Canine Detection Collaborative.
We appreciate the time you spend with us. If you liked this episode, not only should you follow us so you don't miss the next one, but please also rate and review us in your favorite podcast app. For info on collaborating with us, go to k9detectioncollaborative.com. That's K9detectioncollaborative.com, where you can find our socials and pick up our latest monthly freebie. Join us again to talk training in the next episode.